It's late at night when Vanessa, a pregnant lady, is taken to the hospital with a horrific wound. Vanessa began giving birth as soon as the physicians tried to keep her alive, claiming that a wild animal was to blame. After a difficult birthing procedure, a son is delivered and taken away as Vanessa passes away. Years later, an attractive lady lures a gullible man to a massive refrigerator, only to shock him with a secret entry to a posh nightclub. The man soon discovers there is something strange about this club once they join the dancing crowd. When he looks up, the sprinkler system is spraying blood everywhere since all of the club's guests have turned out to be vampires. Suddenly, a few droplets of blood land on his face. The man attempts to flee by crawling on the floor, but when he spots a man with clean feet, the celebration stops right away and the man freezes. Blade is his name, although the vampires refer to him as Daywalker. He approaches the main dance floor coolly and begins a merciless massacre of the monsters, picking them off with a combination of martial arts and weapons. His specially crafted weapons include silver on the blades and bullets, which the vampires are vulnerable to. Blade is encircled by the club's guards, who are being led by Quinn, after he has fought his way through countless animals. Another bloody struggle breaks out, and this time Blade utilizes both his sword and his blades to simultaneously slay several vampires. He then pursues Quinn, lighting him ablaze while fastening him to the wall with spikes and wishing Frost well. At that point, police sirens signal their presence, so Blade flees, leaving just a burned Quinn and a bewildered human as survivors. The cops take Quinn's crisp remains to the hospital for inspection, supposing he is dead. Karen, the designated physician, recognizes something odd about the blood examination and the protruding fangs right away. Quinn startlingly comes back to life during the test and starts eating both Karen and her co-worker. Blade, however, enters the morgue knowing what to anticipate. He confronts the vampire when it has been awakened, but Quinn leaps from the building and lands inside an ambulance before escaping. Blade passes a bleeding Karen who is on the ground and screaming for assistance as he leaves. Blade lifts Karen up and carries her along as he jumps to another roof while escaping the officer's gunshots since the doctor makes him think of his mother. Before they go, Blade returns fire with a few rounds and assists Karen with her broken arm. When they get at Blade's hideout, Karen is already unconscious, so Whistler, a friend of Blade's, gives her a garlic serum injection to prevent the metamorphosis. Whistler warns Blade that she must be killed if she turns into a vampire. The Vampire Shadow Council is gathering in the House of Erebus conference room at the same time. Elder Dragonetti lectures a young vampire named Frost for his carelessness in managing these clubs while discussing Blade's recent increased attacks. The majority of vampires, even renegades like Frost, feel that they should govern humans entirely while yet maintaining a strong, covert organization akin to the Mafia. It is then revealed. It has also been proven that pureblood vampires, or those who are born vampires, have some prejudice against individuals who are born human and subsequently transform into vampires. Even though Frost is not pureblood like the rest of the council, he vows to change their ways one day. The next morning, Blade visits a friend's store to get additional garlic serum because he is growing less susceptible to it. Sadly, his friend is powerless and hugs him while warning him to exercise caution. Karen is astonished to see a wall covered in weapons, including a sword with a trick handle, when she awakens later in a strange chamber. When she exits, she sees Whistler giving Blade a unique serum injection that causes his entire body to tremble. She attempts to flee as soon as the pair spots her. Whistler and Blade, however, instantly stand in her way and reassure her that they are comrades. Blade and Whistler battle against every vampire species using silver bullets, UV lights, and garlic. Whistler is Blade's tutor and a weapons technician. Because the vampires bought them off, they are unable to present this to the police. Now that they know her secret, they want her to depart, but Whistler first offers Karen a weapon known as the vampire threat so she can defend herself from the vampires that would undoubtedly pursue her. Dragonetti, in the meantime, approaches Frost to chastise him for squandering time and resources investigating fanciful vampire stories. Frost, though, doesn't seem disturbed. As soon as Karen enters her building, she starts to be wary of everyone she sees, especially those with unusual neck tattoos. Officer Krieger is waiting for her at her apartment when she gets there, and first he claims to be there because she left the hospital without giving him a statement. But then, when he shows himself to be a familiar, a human who works for vampires for years in exchange for the possibility of being rewarded with transformation into a vampire, he strikes her. Blade appears out of nowhere, anticipating this to happen since he's been using Karen as bait. He assaults the officer and reveals to Karen the tattoo on his neck before telling her they'll be using him to find Frost. When they search Krieger's vehicle and discover the truck loaded with blood bags, Blade pulls a revolver and demands an explanation. Krieg is given the opportunity to flee when Karen stops him from causing mayhem in the city. Blade chooses to wait outside in a car for Krieger to reappear, and Karen says she's going to remain with him until she finds a cure. When it gets dark, Blade starts pursuing Krieger around the city once he arrives to pick up his car. They eventually arrive at a vampire-run nightclub, and as they attempt to enter, a security tries to stop them, but Blade just knocks him up. Blade continues to beat up security inside the club until Krieger informs him that there is a secret door in the refrigerator that leads to a hidden archive. Blade and Karen search the area after sending Krieger away with a message for Frost and discover a repulsive vampire named Pearl who is in charge of the vampire's records and computer systems. Frost completes the translation of the old manuscripts in the meantime. Krieger shows there to alert him of Blade's presence, but Frost murders him and gives him to his lover. Then he gives Quinn the order to catch Blade alive. When Karen uses a UV light to burn Pearl, who initially refuses to comply, Pearl suddenly starts dropping the beans that Frost intends to call up the blood deity La Magra. Karen uses the light to murder Pearl, while Blade snatches a hard disk with the data. After blowing up a door with a special explosive spray, they discover the old vampire Bible hidden behind it. Blade discovers a terrified little girl after hearing a disturbance, but when he attempts to comfort her, she reveals that she is a vampire and attacks him. As additional guards are brought in by Quinn, a new brawl breaks out. Blade is tied to a column during this fight, and Quinn seizes the opportunity to knife him as payback. One of the vampires reaches for Blade's sword, but the trap in the handle causes him to lose his hand. In response, Whistler is revealed by a nearby wall explosion as Blade reveals he had been carrying an earphone in case he needed assistance. Blade, Whistler, and Karen continue to trade punches and gunfire until just before a device Whistler placed behind detonates. The tunnel leads them to the subway tracks, where Quinn jumps on Blade to start a new battle as the train goes by. Quinn is pushed against the train by Blade, who causes him to lose a hand and half his face while Whistler flees via a sewer hole. Quinn runs away when Karen offers him his sword back. Blade seizes Karen as more vampires approach, and the two flee by boarding a train. Blade injects himself with blood serum inside, leading Karen to believe he is a vampire. When they get at the hideaway, Whistler informs Karen that Blade's mother was bitten when she was expecting, and she passed away as a result. Whistler nearly murdered him after seeing the lost child on the streets, but after realizing he wasn't a vampire, he chose to adopt him. Blade may have some traits like strength and regeneration, while still being able to walk in the sunlight since he is half vampire and half human. He receives a serum that keeps him from becoming dependent on sucking blood. As Dragonetti is being brought to a dawn, Frost and his party prepare themselves with helmets and sunscreen before removing his teeth and allowing the sun swiftly kill him. Frost then calls for 12 volunteers and shows the fangs to the rest of the Shadow Council. The first thing Karen creates, which causes vampire blood to burst, is a permanent cure using Whistler's research and Blade's serum as a basis. Blade departs to get additional components for his serum after Karen takes a sample of his blood, and Whistler checks on Karen's wounds before advising her that she only has 1 day to live. Blade discovers Frost waiting for him downtown while donning sunscreen. The vampire is using a little child as a shield to deter Blade from attacking him and offers a ceasefire, but Blade is opposed to it since he believes Frost intends to bring the blood god back. He takes out a revolver and fires, but Frost flings the girl into oncoming traffic and flees. Blade is forced to save the girl before taking down his target. Karen makes a suitable curative serum at the hideaway and administers it to herself right away. At that point, Frost and his men show there, beat up Whistler, and then abscond with Karen. When Blade comes back, he is horrified to see Whistler's lifeless body. As he recounts Frost's objectives and mentions that the ritual requires the blood of a daywalker like Blade, Whistler informs him that he has examined the hard disk. Blade follows his requests and departs from him with a revolver so that he may put an end to things for himself after learning that the man does not want to become a vampire. Thereafter, Blade discovers a mocking video from Frost in which he challenges him to come see him and provides the address. Blade, who is grieving, equips himself with silver and the new serum before going in search of Frost. Later, Blade uses a bike to break into Frost's offices. He shoots any guard who dares block him on the first floor without even flinching. On the following one, He engages in a hand-to-hand battle with two skilled martial artist vampires, but after exchanging a few blows, Blade administers the serum and causes them to blow up. Blade discovers a startling surprise when he finally enters Frost's room. Vanessa is still alive, having turned into a vampire not long after giving birth. In reality, Frost was the one who bit her, and now she serves as his mistress. Due to the confusion, Frost and his guard can sneak up behind him and beat him to surrender. After that, Blade and Karen are brought to the Temple of Eternal Night, where Blade is unable to defend himself due to his dehydrated state. Before sending Blade off to his location to begin the ritual, Frost admits that he has taken the vials containing the serum and dumps them to the bottom of the pit. When Karen is forced down a hole, she discovers his coworker in an almost zombie-like state from dehydration. In addition, there are several bones on the ground, so Karen uses one of them to beat the vampire into submission before beginning to emerge from the hole. Blade is currently being bound to a specific device for the ceremony, and Vanessa approaches Blade in an improper manner while advising him to realize that she is not the mother he recalls. The device is then shut and starts drawing blood from Blade. When one of the council members attempts to resist, Frost's lover murders him. Upstairs, Frost lines the council members up around the temple. Frost is the ultimate vampire god as Blade's blood starts to rain on them all, including Frost in the middle. When lightning strikes the temple, it kills the whole council and gives Frost their powers. When he returns to Karen, he locates Blade and frees him from the device, but it is clear that he is too weak to survive. He drinks her blood when Karen takes off her bandage, rapidly healing him and sending him into a rage. When Vanessa shows there at that point, Blade starts fighting her right once, disregarding her attempts to convince him to love his mother and murder her. When Quinn tries to stop Blade as he runs upstairs, Blade kills him in a matter of seconds. Blade starts battling the guards with a vengeful rage, killing them all in a matter of seconds without the need of any weapons because to the feeling of strength he received from drinking actual blood as opposed to the serum. While pursuing Frost's girlfriend, Karen makes a couple mistakes with her shooting but remembers to utilize the vampire threat to eliminate her just in time. Blade engages Frost in a fierce sword combat after getting his sword back. Frost is successfully chopped into several pieces by Blade, but thanks to his newfound abilities, he can quickly reassemble himself. They start fighting again, but Frost is simply too powerful, and stabbing him has little effect. When Blade sees the serum that had fallen before, he immediately throws his blade to catch them. Then he simultaneously injects Frost with each of them, causing him to blow up. Ultimately, Blade and Karen are able to leave the temple, and Karen offers to treat Blade. Blade declines since curing him of his blood compulsion would also take away his Daywalker abilities, making it impossible for him to pursue vampires. He instead wants to continue defending the city. Later, Blade shows up in Moscow, prepared to slay a vampire who is going to harm a woman.